Yeah, hello. So I have a very serious question to ask you, and this is
Uh-oh.
yeah, this is great. Have you ever seen a squirrel fall out of a tree before?
Yes.
Okay, because that happened to me this morning. Okay, as you probably are fully aware, Sunday mornings are usually filled with me going to Bojangles. Sponsor us.
Yes.
Anyway, for those who have no idea what Bojangles is, it is a fried chicken place here in the South that makes some of the best Cajun filet biscuits ever. When Melissa and I first met, we went into Bojangles together, ordered the same food, sat down, and tore our biscuits apart and
And
dipped
ate
them.
it the same way.
Ate it the
Dipped
same.
him in honey mustard.
Yep. Didn't say anything. Didn't even like acknowledge it. Just started doing it, and everybody's just looking at us like, okay, it was a
And
little
we're like,
weird.
what?
Good that way.
It's the best that way.
Absolutely. So I'm driving around our neighborhood. When you're driving through our neighborhood, there's two ways to go out. One way will take you to like one side of town, the other way will take you to the other side of town. And our neighborhood's not super big, but it's like big enough, you know. I'm driving through and there's this guy who is unloading his lawnmower because everybody around here, if they don't cut their own grass, they hire somebody to cut their grass. And so this guy's like getting his zero turn mower off the back of his trailer, and I'm thinking this must be like the first time he's ever done this because it's like taking him forever to do it. And
Hmm.
so I'm like, he's got the lawnmower on one side of the road, his truck and his trailer on the other side of the road, and I can't go anywhere at this point. So I'm just sitting here patiently waiting, and I'm like, sure, go ahead and take your time. I've only got someplace I got to be in an hour, and I got to eat still. I look over to my left, and these just two squirrels are playing right now in the front yard. And so it's like one of those bigger squirrel and a smaller squirrel, and they're just like fighting and playing and all this other stuff. And all of a sudden, the bigger one goes to chase the smaller one up the tree, and they get to this branch. And I don't know if the larger squirrel like caught up with them and like knocked him off of his balance or whatever, but the smaller squirrel went to go fall off the tree and was literally like hanging there Hugh Lion King style.
Oh no.
Like he's just
No.
hanging there, and there's the bigger squirrels like sitting there with
Brother,
him, just like staring at
save
him.
me.
Exactly. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm watching like the squirrel adaptation of the Lion King or something going on. And so the squirrel's just like hanging there, and I'm like, come on, buddy, you can get back up there. Next thing I know, he just goes plop
Oh
and
no.
hits the ground. Now, for anybody who's fallen out of a tree before, it's kind of a stunning situation.
Especially when all you do is climb trees your whole life.
And so I'm
Because you're a
sitting there.
squirrel.
Exactly. And so he's just sitting there, and I'm like, oh my god, I hope he didn't like die because like he wasn't moving.
Oh my god. That would be dramatic.
Now keep in mind, this entire time the guy still hasn't moved his lawnmower yet, and I'm getting a little
Oh
frustrated at this
no.
point. And so finally, the squirrel like gets up on his hind legs and like shakes himself off and then runs away. And I'm sitting there and I'm laughing so hard I'm crying, right? And I'm pretty sure that the landscaper must have thought that I was losing my mind because I'm just sitting there in the truck just laughing so hard. And he must have thought I was laughing at him or something because he got looked like he got
Like he got a little
frustrated.
upset.
Finally moved his lawnmower of the squirrel adaptation of the Lion King because it was great. Hey, this is Alicia,
This is Melissa.
and this is Dark.
Dark.
So, other than squirrels, how was your morning?
My morning was great. I went to McDonald's, got food, and had to go pick up some stuff from Walmart. And my son goes, "Now, mommy, make sure you pay attention to the time, and you got to make it snappy. Cause you got to record at 12." And like snapped his fingers at me. And my husband goes, the ball's on you, son. The ball's on you to snap your fingers at your mother and say, make it snappy. I don't even have those balls. So that was my morning.
Hey, he's showing dedication to this podcast. That's something we can leave to our offspring later on. They they can do
Oh
our
yeah.
spinoff.
Oh no. Tales in the dark too. Oh Lord.
Um, so I was supposed to tell a story today, and I got started on the research for it, and I was really kind of into it in the beginning, and then I realized there just wasn't a lot of information on this particular person. So I decided to hold off onto it until I've got she's not really the only person that is known as like the angel of death. And I wanted to basically combine kind of like a bunch of um like really fucked up medical issues
Yeah.
combined together in like one thing because recently the Dr. Death episode came out on
Yes.
was it Wandery? Yeah, through Wandery.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and it's really good. So if you haven't gone and listened to it, go listen to it. It's very detailed, very, very. Oh my gosh! Like I thought the show on Peacock was good. The actual podcast itself is really good. I want to combine all of these stories together of like medical um, deaths and the doctors who and nurses who basically, you know, bypassed their pledges to do no harm and did it anyway. So
Yeah.
I'm going to combine those all together and do like one big thing on it. So I'm holding off on that for later. But I was watching, excuse me, I was listening to And That's Why We Drink, and they started telling this story. And the way they were telling it, I thought it was a different story because it was very similar to each other. And it kind of blew my mind a little bit. I was like, why? Wait, this is not the story I thought it was because, like I said, so similar in the things that happen, but two totally different outcomes. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to combine these two stories together because they have a common theme. And not only is it a common theme, but the first names and the last names are really, really odd for the victims because of my fiance. And so I will I will explain all that. It's just whew, crazy, crazy story. So we're gonna, huh?
I was just that
Mm-hmm.
like listening.
Okay, so let's start with the very first story. This is the story of Joyce McKinney, aka the Mananacled Mormon.
Oh dear Lord.
Yeah, it's this is pretty interesting. And one of the reasons why I brought this up was because she was born in Avery County, North Carolina.
Was she now?
Yes, she was.
That's just right up the road from me.
Yep, she was born in Avery County. Actually, she just had a birthday, August 6th, 1949.
Well, happy birthday.
Yep,
I'm
yep,
guessing.
yep. Um, so let's talk about Joyce McKinney.
Buckle
Again,
up, folks.
yeah, like I said, she was born August 6th, 1949, Avery County, North Carolina. Not much is very, well known about her younger years. Most of the story starts the day that she was basically what's the word I'm looking for? Where she became famous for doing some bad things.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, she was in a small town called Minneapolis, North Carolina. I didn't know that there was a Minneapolis in North Carolina, but yeah.
We also have a little Switzerland.
Yeah, we forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, guys. Let me grab some drink real quick. Try not to like clear my throat and cough in everybody's ear. Okay, so she was actually very smart, apparently, according to everybody who knew her. She was a cheerleader. She graduated from East Tennessee University with a bachelor's degree and then a master's degree from the University of North Carolina in drama.
Oh,
Yep. And while she
University of
was
North
living,
Carolina.
yeah, yeah.
There's several.
Well, I think she was like the actual like UNC. So
Oh,
yeah, like the
that
actual.
UNC.
Yeah. She was living with a Mormon family during college, and she converted to the Church of Latter-day Saints. So she became a Mormon during the time that she was in college. she decided that she wanted to become a beauty contestant in beauty pageants. She went to Wyoming because, at the time, Wyoming was less populated and a less competitive state. So she figured she'd have a better chance. I mean, that
Okay
makes sense.
then.
That makes sense. Totally
Well,
makes
okay
sense to me.
then.
Yeah. She became Miss Wyoming World, not Miss Wyoming. There's a difference. There's like Miss Wyoming, and then you have the Great Value brand, Miss Wyoming World.
The Equate. The Equate, Miss Wyoming.
The Equate Miss Wyoming World.
The Great Value.
So she basically decided that she was going to try to compete in the Miss USA pageant and did not win. But it is what it is. So instead, she decided she was going to move to Utah and go to Brigham Young University. And for those of you who do not know what Brigham Young University is, it is a predominantly Mormon college in Salt Lake City. They would go. Her and her friends said that she was really outgoing. She was very straightforward. She would put, herself out there, no qualms about it. Just very much so the life of the party, so to say. She wanted to marry. Okay, so do you remember Donnie and Marie Osmond?
Not that young, but yes.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, some of our listeners are probably like, "Who? What?" So back in the day, like in the 60s and 70s, there were this family. There was a very prominent family out of the Mormon Church called the Osmonds. Donnie and Marie were kind of like the forefront of this family, and they went into show business. And um, anyway, she was really obsessed with one of the Osmond brothers and decided that she wanted to. Um, hold on, sorry, my brain just went crazy for a second. Um, anyway, so she actually tried to date Wayne Osmond, but
Oh.
his mama was like, "Nah."
Mama Osmond was like, nah, bruh.
Nah, she was like, "No, I can do that." And so she kind of gave up on that. So she, I guess, basically moves on. And at this time, she was in her mid-20s, I want to say. She met a guy by the name of Kirk Anderson. He was 6'4",
Gracious.
and he was kind of a big guy. Like
Well,
he was
yeah.
he was a big guy. And she said that at first sight, love at first sight kind of situation. She was already naming their kids, you know, all the other stuff.
Oh,
Well, okay. So in the Mormon church, one of the biggest thing is chastity. Like that
yes.
is everything to people who are in LDS. And they they're saving it for marriage just like the big thing. Well, they didn't. And her and Kirk basically had a lot of
Bumped
sex
ugly.
and overcome, they were both like very, very guilty about it. And well, Kirk's mom did not like the older Joyce because she was like 10 years older than that. I don't know. It was kind of a big
Okay.
gap.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he decided that usually around the age of 19 anyway is when most men and women in the Mormon church go off on their mission trips. So he turned to uh his leader in his church and he's like, "I'm ready to go on my mission." He's like, "Okay, great. We're gonna send you to England." First they sent him to California, then Oregon, and everywhere he went, Joyce was like right behind him. Like she was following him everywhere he went. Now she decided to give up Mormonism, but he didn't. He was like, "I'm really into my religion. I want to go do this. This is my focus in life." So, like I said, they sent him overseas directly to England. She couldn't get the information from the church as to where he went.
Oh, I bet
And
that made her very happy.
oh yeah, like she was super stoked about that. Is so excited enough that she decided that she was going to hire a private detective. And she knew that it was going to cost money. So what she ended up doing was she ended up becoming a bondage model.
Ho, ho, ho.
Yeah. So she was like she
That's
basically
definitely not
became
very Mormon of.
no, she became the Oh my god, what is like the Betty Page kind
Gotcha.
of kind of poses and stuff. She basically set up. She became a pimp.
Keep that pin pan strong.
Well, the thing is, like, okay, so if
Talk
she
at a
was
45-degree angle at all times.
exactly, but I mean, if she was like, performing these BDSM poses and stuff for like clients, if they wanted to have sex with her, she wouldn't have sex with them. She would bring in like her surrogate. So yeah, two
Uh-huh.
years she did this to save money for a private detective. 2 years.
Well, she wasn't dedicated.
Well, I mean, at what point though? I mean, so she finally is able to afford this private detective, and they find out that he is in England. He's actually in Surrey, in England, and not Surrey, but Surrey.
Mm-hmm.
So she has this friend, and the only time they ever really mention this guy is the fact that he went with her to do this. But apparently, she had this like really good friend named Keith May, and they decided that they were going to leave and go over to England. What she did was she flew to England with false passports, fake pistols, chloroform, cinnamon flavored rubbing oil, and fur lined handcuffs.
Well, okay then. Not
Ah,
that you. Well, this is back in, you said, the 60s.
this is in 77.
Oh yeah, no, you can get away with that stuff. They didn't check your bag as well as they do now.
Exactly, but I mean, it's like, what a thing to pack, you know?
Make sure I got
You-
my underwear. Make sure I got my jeans.
My
Oh, get the
furry.
chloroform.
And don't forget the mink handcuffs.
Oh, and the mink handcuff.
My favorite joke in the thing of when I was listening to the podcast of, and that's why we drink. They were like, "Well, she also pissed off PETA because
Oh, yep. She pissed
yep,
off a whole bunch of people. Not only the Mormon church, but Peter
PETA,
was not happy.
yeah." So she decides that she's going to figure out exactly where he is. They get the address. They pull up to the church and see him coming out of the church. She pulled the fake gun on him, chloroformed him, and put him in the back seat of the car.
I don't mean to laugh, but that's just that's dedication that I just don't have
And it's something
for
straight
much
out of
of
a freaking
anything.
movie. Yeah, and it's something straight out of a freaking movie.
Yes.
I'm just like, at what point is it too much, you know? So she takes him to this cottage, and she has cooked all his favorite foods, had put blue silk sheets on the bed,
Ooh.
chained him spread eagle with a 10-foot chain. Yeah.
Now she's just
So as a gift,
because getting chloroformed wasn't a gift enough.
she gave him 1,000 pounds, which I don't know what that would be in today's money. I don't do math, but I would assume if it was 1,000 pounds back then, it's probably like $1,500. So probably about $4,000 a day. A ring offered to give him a back rub with the cinnamon oil to relax him, and he consented. I mean, at what
Well,
point?
1,000 pounds in today's money is $1,387.75.
Wow. So yeah, that's a lot of money. Well, I don't know if you guys know this or not, so I'm gonna share a little bit of information about Mormonism that I did not know until I started watching uh, stuff on TV and also on TikTok about Mormons. But apparently, they have sacred Mormon underwear.
Oh
Did not
no,
know. I did
not
not know that
sacred
was a
bloomers.
yes. I did not know that was a thing, but apparently it is. And she claims that she ripped off his sacred Mormon underwear and burned it. And
Mm-hmm.
she basically thought of the Mormon Church as a cult, and that they had brainwashed uh, Kirk Anderson, and she knew that the only way to get him out of that mindset was to make love to him. Um, yeah, she
So
claims that
she technically she raped him.
she never did, and that it was impossible for a woman to rape a man.
Oh, we know nowadays that is not
Right, this is the 70s though, so in the 70s, completely different.
mindset.
Yeah, it was so different back then. So after Kirk promised to marry her, they took him back to London, had dinner at the Hard Rock Cafe.
Because that's romantic.
Yeah, and then after dinner, he told her that he was going to go to the Mormon Tabernacle just to assure them that he was okay. However, he claims that he was able to escape. He went to the police and was like, "She did this." And the cops were like, "No, that's not possible because, that's just not a thing." Now, here's where it gets a little weird, a little dicey,
Because
because
it
then it
has
becomes,
gotten weird already.
right, I know, but this becomes a chapter of he said, she said.
Oh, okay.
And when he went to the cops, they told the Mormon church asked him to say that he was just kidnapped, not to mention any of the other stuff. But he's like, no, they need to know this is what she did to me. And well, they ended up arresting her with kidnapping, basically forced abduction, false imprisonment, assault and possession of imitation firearms with criminal intent. Now, she was sent to prison for 3 months while awaiting trial, and her lawyer said that she lived in fear of the Mormon Church because she was afraid that they were going to come back and try to hurt her in some way. And the biggest thing was they thought that she was mentally ill because of everything that she did. But I mean, you know, honestly, she was a little off kilter. I've been in
Well,
some
yeah, she saved up for 2 years to go kidnap, because that's what she did, chloroform, and rape a guy.
exactly.
That's a
So
little batty.
that's yeah. So I don't know. Like I can actually see that being a thing where she's like, I need help, and they were like, okay, cool. We know that you need help, so we're going to release you on bail so you can get some mental help.
Hmm.
Well, the thing about it is,
She didn't go get help, did she?
well, no, of course not. But she was a very pretty 30 something blonde woman, and the tabloids had a field day with this story. I mean, she was everywhere. She was all over the tabloids in England. She was all over the tabloids in the United States. Like, it was insane. They publicly humiliated poor Kirk Anderson. They basically made him out to be like, this guy who just, I don't know. He should have, there's no way that this happened, the way that he's claiming it, and all this other stuff. And so they, they basically portrayed her as like this really nice, cool woman who couldn't have done anything bad. So she ended up selling her story to the Daily Express for 40,000 pounds, which is about $80,000 at the time. She told them the story about how, she didn't do any of, things that they were saying, and that basically she was innocent. So
Oh,
yeah,
everyone else crazy. I didn't do
yeah,
this.
yeah, exactly.
How could I do this? I'm a woman.
Yeah. Now, the Daily Mirror, which is another one of the tabloids, found those bondage photos that she had taken and tried to make her out to be like this sex crazed person who was, just trying to get the man that she wanted, regardless of what anybody thought. And they, of course, published these photos and really angry about that. But she claims that the pictures were fabricated. She says she never took those pictures and people were just putting her heads on people's bodies. But yeah, okay. This is the 80s. Like,
Hmm.
how that's kind of hard to do.
It's
Um,
not like they had Photoshop back
right. Now, she never, even despite everything that's happened so far, so she's been in jail. She's been, labeled this, you know, um, manacled Mormon who's just really, really wanting to get with this guy. And she still stalked him even when they went back to the United States. And in 1984, she was arrested for stalking him. Now, here's the interesting thing. So, she didn't really spend a lot of time out, she didn't spend a lot of time in jail. She spent maybe, a couple months in jail, if that. She fled to Canada using fake passports, and they were going to extradite her back to the UK, but they ended up just being like, you know what, we're not going to do that. And they just left her alone, which is pretty, I think that's pretty messed up because,
Yes.
you know, it became like a case of, well, there was no way she could have, raped him. He's making it up. He's just upset because now the Mormon church is going to see him in a bad light. That's kind of where that whole story ended up going. Well, this wasn't the only time that she made headlines. In 2007, she has this dog named Booger.
Oh no.
Yeah, she went they claim that she went to South Korea and spent $25,000 to clone her dog. Her name was Joyce Vernon McKinney, right?
Mm-hmm.
She flew to South Korea under her middle name, so Vernon McKinney, and she claimed that that wasn't her. She claimed that it was somebody else, but they were like, "Your name is literally Joyce Vernon McKinney. It was you. Why are you lying about this?"
Especially in 2007.
Right, right. She there was this movie called Tabloid where it's the story of her going all the way to England, and still going after this um this guy, this Kirk Anderson guy. And she she said in the film that she compared herself to Anderson's wife, claiming they found him a fat wife.
Oh.
I'm just like, what? What in the world? So she's never held down a job, BT dubs.
Except for being a
She
pimp.
Yeah, I mean, like, she apparently was, like, living off of her father. She I mean, this was just a crazy, crazy story. Um, I was listening to this and I was thinking, "You know what? I don't understand this because let me tell you, this is not the first time something like this has happened in the Mormon church with a woman becoming obsessed with a Mormon missionary, believe it or
Okay.
not."
Well,
Have you ever heard of Jodi
no,
Arias?
have not heard about that one.
All right. So I'm going to tell you the quick story, the Joyce McKinney story first, because she was the one before Jodi Arias. The Mormon church kind of into a light that eventually, 30 years later, here comes Jodi Arias doing basically the same thing, except for a completely different outcome. So let's go into it. Jodi Arias, very, 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 very interesting story. So let's talk about the guy that she was obsessed with first. His name was Travis Alexander. He was born in 1977. Oh,
Hmm.
kind of weird, right? I was sitting here and I was reading these two stories together, and I was like, he was born the year that Joyce McKinney abducted Kirk Anderson. I was like, this is kind of crazy. Um, and for those of you guys who don't know, my fiance's name is Travis Anderson.
Oh Lord.
So there's Travis Alexander and Kirk Anderson.
Oh shit.
Travis's dad's name is Alexander.
Holy shit.
I was sitting there and I was like, what?
Hold on a second. Wait a minute.
It was so crazy. I was like, what is this? Okay. So, anyway. So, Travis Alexander was born July 28th, 1977 in Riverside, California. His dad died when they were pretty young, and his paternal grandmother introduced him to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So she brought him into the LDS church. He was a salesman for the multi-level marketing company Prepaid Legal Services. Now, there's something, I don't know what it is, and maybe our listeners can help me out with this one, but I think I understand part of it. For some reason, in the LDS and the Mormon religion, there are a lot of people who are in these MLMs,
Hmm.
like these And I don't know if it's maybe because they're trying to become their own bosses. Like I know, like one of the things that they push inside the Mormon Church is basically becoming your own entity, so you're not like depending upon others or the government or anything like that to take care of you. Like that is one thing that they really push really hard. So I don't know if that has a lot to do with it or what, but anyway. So he was a motivational speaker as well. And Jodi Arias was born July 9th, 1980, in Salinas, California. She met Travis Alexander at a prepaid legal services conference in Vegas in 2006. 2020 in 2006 on November 26th, she was baptized into the Latter-day Saints faith by Alexander. As of February
Mhm.
2nd, they were a couple, and then they broke up on June 29th, 2007, and she moved to Mesa, Arizona until 2008 when she moved into her grandparents' house in Eureka, California. Now, this is just like I said, this is kind of like a small tidbit of their backstory in their life. Now, as much of a media shit show as Joyce McKinney was in the tabloids over in England, Jodi Arias basically became Joyce McKinney in the United States.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is so crazy. So they were in love and then they broke up. And one of the reasons why they broke up was because obviously just the same kind of situation with Joyce McKinney and oh my gosh, my brain just went.
Man.
Kirk Anderson. Um it was a situation where he was very devout to his faith, decided that she was not going to be the woman that was going to help him continue his faith and continue the things that he wanted to do within the religion. So he broke it off with her and focused primarily on religion. Well, the same situation happened with Travis Alexander and Jodi Arias. He realized that she was not going to be the kind of woman that he needed to continue his faith and pursue his future. And he decided that she, she was not wifey material. Like, she was not going to be the woman that he was going
She
to end up
ain't the
marrying.
one, homie. She ain't the
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. So she got really upset because she felt used. They would have like, I was watching the Dateline episode on the Jodi Arias story, and she said she basically would, um, the only thing that was really keeping them together was sex.
Well, that's
And
a big no-no in the
exactly,
Mormon religion.
exactly. So she was very upset whenever he broke it off with her, and she didn't know what to do. So she basically carried on just a friends with benefits situation with him,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
those never really turn out great in the beginning anyway,
Those never work
and
out, really.
those never work out really. And she basically was like, okay, well, I am, um, I'm better than this. I'm going to get him back. Like this is my goal in life. Well, in the process of her doing this, she was also going to a lot of conferences and shows and like I would say like they said it's like boat shows and stuff like that. She was basically working at these shows, doing
Mhm.
presentations and stuff like that. I don't know. Anyway, so she met this guy that while she was there, and they became really good friends. And one day she shows up to his house in Colorado. Yeah, it was Colorado. And he was like, "Hey, she's like, I promised I'd come see you." And he's like, "Oh, I'm so glad that you decided to come see me." And he said that she was um, very outgoing. It didn't seem like anything was wrong. She was doing, really, really great. But meanwhile, back in Arizona, a shit show was unraveling. First of all, Travis Alexander was supposed to go to a conference. He was supposed to leave on a business trip, and he didn't. Um, he was supposed to go to Cancun. He also missed a really important conference call on the night of June 4th, 2008 at 7 p.m. By June 9th, no one was able to reach him, and so people who were friends of his who worked with him at the prepaid legal services, went to his house to check on him, and his roommate said that he was out of town.
Huh.
So I want you, yeah, that's kind of
This is
weird,
all
right?
starting to sound familiar to me now.
Right. They said he was out of town, and so they found a key to to the master bedroom because apparently he shared his house with a bunch of other um, people from the Mormon church. And when they finally got into his master bedroom, they noticed, blood in the hallways leading to the master bedroom, and they found his body in the shower.
Oh shit.
Um, they made a 911 call and basically said, "Look, we know for a fact, okay, first of all, he's dead. Second of all, we know that he was being stalked by his ex-girlfriend." And apparently, she was like not only just stalking him, she was also hacking into his Facebook account, slashing his tires. Like she was doing some pretty
The
messed up stuff.
most.
Right.
She was doing the absolute most.
Exactly. So they were like, okay, this is not good. Well, in 2008, a burglary had occurred at Jodi Arias' grandparents' house where a 25 caliber gun and other things were taken. The gun was never recovered.
Hmm.
So several days before her trip, she had reportedly contacted her ex-boyfriend, Daryl Brewer, asking to borrow two 5-gallon gas cans for a trip to Arizona. They were not returned. I'm not sure why she got all this gas, but they don't really know exactly what she was planning with the gas. But it was kind of
Yeah.
a big thing in the
What the fuck?
well, a lot of times whenever courts are trying to establish premeditation,
Yes.
they're looking at any angle that could possibly show premeditation. And by buying like uh 8 gallons of gas with one and then 9 gallons of gas with the other, like there was who knew why she was doing that. But that was kind of like one of the things that they were trying to establish first degree murder premeditation because of the gas and then the gun being taken from her grandparents' house. Um, so in the process of them doing the crime scene, they did find a 25 caliber round near one of the sinks. They found a digital camera that was placed inside of a washing machine and doused with water, I guess, in an attempt to destroy whatever was on this digital camera.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all you had to do is just like, I don't know, take the camera
Format
with
the
you, or
or
yeah, or take
format the SD card coming from
oh,
photographers here.
exactly, or just chunk it out the window. I mean, like
Yeah.
there were so many
There's
things
ways. There's ways to get rid of a camera.
instead of just putting it in a washing machine and dousing it with water. I mean, cool, like that's what you want to do, but really bad planning on that part. So they were actually able to recover the images, and they found pictures of her, and him together, and a bunch of other photos, including one of him profusely bleeding on the floor.
I do remember this one now.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say you
It's
should.
all coming back to me now.
Yeah, I was gonna say this was a pretty big trial. Like, and
Yes,
there's been
now I remember
several.
this one.
Yeah, there's
She was
several.
crazy.
Yeah, this was. Whew. And there were several like TV movies that were made on this, like
Mm-hmm.
Lifetime movies and stuff. Like, it's crazy. So they um they found a palm print. They found DNA mixtures between Arias and Alexander. Um, they claimed that whenever her friends saw her in Utah, excuse me, it was not Colorado. She went to Utah. After the incident, she had bandages on her hands. Um, just basically everything was pointing towards her. Right.
Mm-hmm.
She was indicted on first-degree murder charges on July 9th, 2008, and was arrested at her grandparents' home on July 15th and extradited to Arizona. Now, in the very beginning, she told cops that she didn't do it. She had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. She wasn't there. She don't know. Then she said that two intruders had broken into his house and murdered him and attacked her. And then the last defense was that she killed him in self-defense, as she was a victim of domestic violence. Now, here is where things get really interesting in the comparison between Joyce McKinney and Jodi Arias. Because remember, Joyce McKinney, she lapped it up with the tabloids.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was her thing. Like she even got paid by the tabloids. Like I don't know. That whole thing's just crazy.
It was a shit show.
Right. So Jodi Arias kind of had her own little shit show. She basically spent, I think it was 18 days on the stand.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and then like people were showing up to trial like uh standing in line for almost like overnight waiting to get in to watch this trial live. There were people who were selling their spots, and when the judge found that out, she put that to a stop real quickly. People were coming from all over the country to get a glimpse at Juan Martinez, who was the counsel for the state against her. Apparently, he was very, very snippy, um, very sarcastic. People liked him. They said he was no hold barred, that kind of situation. And they came to watch him basically make a mockery out of her. Um, so, like I said, she spent like 18 days on the stand. First day she was there, she was talking, she talked about being abused by her parents. Then our second day, she said that she talked about their sex life, like in grave detail. Then she testified that their relationship was becoming more and more dysfunctional and that he was very emotionally and physically abusive. Um, she said that eventually it came to a head and she felt like she needed to protect herself and she killed him in self defense. And that basically was, her story that she was sticking to towards the end of this trial. Now, Janine DeMarte, who was a clinical psychologist, testified for the prosecution that Arias did not suffer from PTSD or amnesia because she said she didn't know how he ended up dying, which I'm going to tell you how he died here in just a second. I know you're probably like, how did he die? Um, but the thing is, she doesn't remember doing this. Well, what she ended up doing to him was uh he had more than 20 stab wounds.
I think it was 27.
Yeah, some
If
saying
my
even
if my memory serves me correctly, I think it was 27 stab wounds.
right, some report even up to 29. He had his throat slit. He's almost decapitated. His throat was so slashed. He had defensive wounds and a gunshot wound to the head,
Jeez Louise.
which she says she does not remember stabbing or slitting his throat. She does remember shooting him, but doesn't remember all the other stuff. Or at least that's what she said. But anyway. Where was the other one? So, on the 14th of March of that year, of the same testimony year for the court, Richard Samuels testified for the defense for nearly 6 days. He said Arias was likely suffering from acute stress, was sending her into fight or flight mode, and she had to defend herself. And then Elise LaViolette, a psychotherapist who specializes in domestic violence, testified that Arias was a victim of domestic abuse, and most victims don't tell anyone about abuse because they feel ashamed and humiliated. Now, this is where things started taking a really interesting turn because this was right around the time when this is like, 2013. Twitter had been around for a couple of years by this time point, and one of the people that she was in jail with helped her start a Twitter account and would live tweet during the testimonies.
Wow.
Um, she was basically Jodi Arias's social media manager before there really was social media
That's so
managers.
mean. Yeah, right?
Um, Anytime something would happen at court that day, she would come back and she would tweet about it. People were just all over this case. Inside Edition was like huge on this. It was featured on episode of 48 Hours Mystery. Um, Huffington Post was all over it, talking about the media circus. HLN was there. They had one woman who just basically she was live tweeting herself, like this other woman, and she became so popular that she was invited to HLN every single night to talk with Dr. Drew Pinsky about the trial. She was not like a doctor or lawyer or anything like that. She was just somebody who was just there, and they called on to her, and she became like this big cable news celebrity. So all this stuff is going on. It's this huge media circus. It would be essentially what would be Joyce McKinney back in the 70s if Twitter and HLN and all this other stuff existed when all this stuff was going on with Joyce McKinney.
That's insane.
And the parallels are crazy, right? I mean, you take two women who converted to the Mormon faith, who fell in
To
love
be
with
with men.
to be with men who were in the Mormon religion, who basically were okay with sex until they felt guilty about it, and then were like, okay, so we don't want to have anything to do with you anymore because you're not housewife material, breaks up with them, and
You can't
then
make a hoe into a housewife, pretty much.
that was their basic understanding. And yeah, so like I said, the parallels are just it's insane to me how much they are alike, except for like I said, two completely different outcomes. Um so a lot of public people came forward, like giving their opinions on everything and yeah, it was pretty interesting trial. Like I said, 18 days on the stand. Like the defense's um strategy was that they were going to put her on the stand long enough to where they knew that she was guilty. Like everybody knew that she was guilty. Like that was not even a question in anybody's mind. But they didn't want her to be sentenced to death because, Arizona is a death penalty state. And they figure if they put her on the stand long enough, the same jury who is deliberating her fate as far as like guilty or innocence is also the same jury that's going to determine her if
Life or
she's going to
death.
life or death situation. So they figured they get her on the stand, people will emotionally connect with her, and they can't sentence her to death. And it actually worked because they were deadlocked and they couldn't. After the guilty, obviously they came back as guilty because there was no other way. I mean, if they had gotten if they put not guilty, like I think the world would have exploded at that point.
Yeah.
But they did find her guilty, and they decided the jury was deadlocked, and so what ended up happening was they did an interview with her after the verdict was announced, and she said she'd prefer a death sentence. That kind of
Oh,
worried everybody in the jail, and they put her on suicide watch. Um, and because of the fact that she basically said, "Put me to death," the judge in the trial decided that they were not going to sentence her to death, and that they ended up putting her in for life without the possibility of
did
parole.
she also sing, if I'm remembering right, did she also like smile during her mugshot?
Oh yeah, yeah.
She was
She was
singing
talking.
like "Oh Holy Night" or "Silent Night" or something.
Yeah, exactly. She was like singing "Oh Holy Night" while she was, uh, I think what was she doing? She was doing something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but she
I
was,
say she was singing like "Silent Night."
yeah. And then like whenever they were, she knew she was about to be arrested when they were interviewing her at the police station, and she goes, "I know this is very, what did she say? She said, I know this is very, um, something of me. I can't remember the exact word she used, but do you think I could take a moment to clean myself up before you take me to have my picture taken?"
Yes.
And they were like, okay. And then they walk out the door, and then she goes, "Stupid, Jody, you should at least put on makeup today." I was
She was
like, what?
singing she was singing "Oh Holy Night" while in custody.
Yeah. Like she was, yeah, she just basically she knew what she was doing. She knew what she had gotten herself into, and well, basically, what ended up happening was, she did go to jail, and um, I don't know, like this whole case, like I said, the parallels were just insane. And I was reading this, was it at? There was this comment on the story about Joyce McKinney, and it said, and this was a comment from one of the readers that said, "I know a lot of women who fall in love with Mormon missionaries and they're convinced they love them back. They stalk them until they return home, then wedding dress and arms arrive a few days later at their family's front door, having told everyone they're going to be married. First time I came across this phenomenon when I was with a friend of mine, joined the church. No one picked her up her obsession with this young missionary until after he transferred out of the area and she began traveling to the places he was sent. telling us that he wanted to marry her. A few months later, he went home to Utah. She brought her plane ticket, packed her wedding dress, gave up her flat, and arrived at his doorstep 2 days later, fully expecting him to be happy. Lucky for him, his mother was clued up on the and arranged for her to sleep at the bishop's home, who then sent her packing the next morning. She arrived back complaining the mother had interfered with her love, but we all know what really happened from his side. She left the church and hasn't been heard of since. Many had done and still do this. This is one reason missionaries have such stringent rules to follow. There is some there are some wacky women in this world, and when you meet one, it's memorable to say the least.
Wow.
So apparently, this is a thing, like that happens a lot of times in the Mormon Church. So, I mean,
Just that's all I can say about this whole situation is wow.
yeah, I don't know like what it is, but like maybe it's just because they become so enamored with these people and they're promised all these things and then it doesn't happen. I mean, I don't know. Like that's the only thing that I can think of. Like
I was about
I
to
don't.
say something so inappropriate.
Uh,
Bite
I
my
mean,
tongue on that one.
you should see all the pictures. Like, I'm gonna send you some pictures of her. Um, there's this picture of her on the bus to, or excuse me, on the police van during the trial, and it says, I am innocent, please help." That's Joyce
Wow.
McKinney. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't even know. Like, the whole thing is just, like I said, between the two stories, it's very interesting.
It just how similar they are. The the Mormon church must have some really good men for them to be like making women crazy like this.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I
That's
don't
quoting
know.
politely what I was going to say.
Yeah, I get where you're probably gonna go with that. Like, but I don't understand it either. Like, I just that whole story just really confused me because, well, it didn't really confuse me. It intrigued me, I should say, not confused, but it intrigued me because here, like I said, these two women from two completely different backgrounds at different times on Earth, and essentially the same things happened. You know,
They both
like
lost their mind over some dick.
pretty much, yeah,
There you
pretty
go.
much.
I said
Uh,
what I said.
yeah. So I mean, I don't know. So like I said, when I was listening to, and that's why we drink, and they were talking about the story of Joyce McKinney, I was like, wait, this isn't the Jodi Arias story? Like, I was so confused. I was like, how are these two the same thing? And I don't know. But I mean, honestly, though, I'm with the one of the comments that I read in one of the articles that said, "Who the hell names their dog Booger
Yeah. That's like people who name their dog Ken. My
or
poor
Kevin?"
dog. Well, no. My dog, before I got him and named him Solo, his prison name, as I like to call it, was Ken. Who names their dog Ken? Or
I don't
Craig?
know. Or Craig.
Craig.
Yeah. I think dogs with like human names are hilarious. I don't know why. I just like, oh, Kevin.
Damn it, Ken.
Uh,
But
so
that was an
yeah.
interesting, those were interesting stories.
Yeah, it like I said, it kind of blew me out of the water of how close they were related, how they both kind of had like her and Joyce McKinney, like Jodi Arias, Joyce McKinney, basically had kind of the same. I wouldn't say same, but pretty close background. See, and Jodi Arias actually used to be a blonde
Oh, wow.
before she dyed her hair, and Joyce McKinney was a bottle blonde as well. So, yeah, you put those, like I said, it's just, I don't know. The parallels are just insane. And that is the
Good
story. It
stories.
is the story of
Good
Joyce McKinney and Jodi Arias. They could have passed as crazy, weird sisters.
twins.
Yeah.
Good good job, E. Good job.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And you know what's even funnier is like when you look at a picture of Travis Alexander and then you look at a picture of
Art.
Kirk Anderson. Well, I can't remember his name. Like it's such a weird name. Anyway, when you look at them side by side, like they even sort of look alike.
That's weird.
Yeah, I know. I know it is very strange. Um he looks like what he would if you were to, like I said, if you put two pictures side by side, he would look like,
It looked like it could be related.
yeah, like at least like maybe in some way or another, like cousin. Anyway, although I will say Travis Alexander looks familiar, like other than from this story. Like he looks like a guy that I know. I'm trying to remember who it is. It's driving me crazy, but I don't know.
Anyway,
Anyway. So that's that crazy story. I am going to put pictures up of both Jodi Arias, Joyce McKinney, Kirk Anderson, and Travis Alexander on our Instagram page, which is obviously Dark Podcast US.
which
Um,
has been blowing up.
yeah, I'm so excited about that. Like it is, yeah, it's definitely getting there. Same with our Twitter account. Same thing, Dark Podcast US. We're getting a lot of followers there as well. We're also on, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this or not. There's this app called Good Pods. I found them whenever I was looking through information on podcasts on Twitter, and a lot of people had joined, and I was like, okay, let me check it out. And it's an app where people share, it's kind of like social media for podcasts.
Wow.
So essentially, you guys can share episodes with one another. You can recommend episodes to groups and to friends and different things like that. And we've been kind of blowing up there as well. Um, I'm kind of very happy about that. Created our own little true crime and paranormal group so people can share stuff with us. Because I mean, hey, we may actually find an episode of something for our future references as far as what we're going to cover.
And if you
And
guys have any ideas of what we should cover, or you just want to send us creepy stories, please email us.
mhm,
That would be great.
darkpodcastemail@gmail.com. And
There you go.
actually, we have our, and I don't know if I told you this or not, we actually have our own email addresses now. I wanted to surprise you.
You do. We do not.
We do. It is
Oh, snap.
Melissa. It is Melissa at darkpodcastus.com and Elicia, Elicia, at darkpodcastus.com.
That's cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, I was going to surprise you today.
Yay!
Also, we have a generic one, which is info at darkpodcastus.com. You can send just general questions there, or you can reach out to us individually, however you'd feel like doing. We also, our Facebook is becoming more and more popular too, which I'm really happy about. Again, Dark Podcast. And yeah, so we're pretty happy. We're pretty stoked. Um, our listeners are growing. We have some very interesting places that are finding us, which I think is very neat. We're very popular in India, which I think is
And shout out to, okay, so shout out to Austin is our
right.
number one city now. So shout out
Hmm.
to Austin. It bumped London down. Charlotte's not even on the top 10 anymore.
No, it's not.
Rude.
I
Just
know,
rude.
but
Not
yeah,
even in the top 20 anymore.
Chicago's our number 3 right now, which is pretty awesome.
We like to
I
look at our analytics every 15 minutes.
Yeah, we're like, okay, keep going, keep going, keep
Keep
going.
refreshing. Refreshing. Keep refreshing.
Absolutely. I mean, you gotta stay on top of that. So yeah, I am really happy with where our podcast is going. You guys are doing the most work when it comes to listening, sharing, commenting, following. Like you guys are just doing absolutely amazing, and we appreciate all of our listeners from all over the world. And we hope you guys are enjoying our content. Again, like Melissa said, if you have anything you want to share with us or questions, darkpodcastemail@gmail.com, info at darkpodcastus.com, Melissa at darkpodcastus.com, and Alicia at darkpodcastus.com. And we hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. We will see you guys, well, we will talk to you guys next week. And Melissa's going to have us something very interesting, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, it's my place. I'm so excited over this topic. Should I keep it a surprise? That's what I've been trying to think. Should I keep it a surprise?
I would, because I wasn't
Yeah, I
expecting
think
to
I'm
do this story, and then like I popped up and was like, you know what, let's do this.
yeah, I think I'm gonna keep it a surprise.
All right. Well, you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and as always, please try to stay out of the dark. Bye.
Bye.